All righty, I'll give you time to shift. I feel like there's a shift happening in the room. So I'll give you a moment. Bathroom breaks. It's important, people. Stay hydrated. OK. You all good? Nice. Then I'll kick off. So hi, I'm Alexis Macleod. I'm the Design Director for Connected Experiences at Electrolux Group. And I'm very happy to be here at UXDX 2023. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the digital transformation journey that Electrolux Group is embarked on, a little bit about my role in it. And I'll take you through the highs, the lows, and the acronyms that we have encountered along the way, because there's a lot of acronyms. But you all love acronyms, right? Because look, woo, you're down with that, right? And as I know, you all love a pithy takeaway, right? And that's what you come to conferences for, so you can get the takeaway. I will finish with 3 things that I believe what it takes to build great digital products in the context that I'm in. Also, it's featuring design, because I am a designer, sorry. Well, I'm a UX designer, which is why I'm using that beautiful handwriting font. So that's all for you real designers in the audience to go be like, oh, why? Why is she trolling us with that? But yeah, so wherever you see a little star in the corner, I'm just going to be talking about design. And if you're not interested in design because you're product or tech, then you can just look at your phones at that bit when the star appears. So it's just like a little handy signifier for you. So you're welcome. OK, so when you start out to build great digital products, you think about companies like Slack, Spotify. And if you're doing that in a startup context, then it's like a blank slate, right? You can set it up however you want. And if you're in a scale-up, then you've got some established ways of working, which you might have to readjust. But it's in your world, it's in your grasp. But when you're doing it in an established corporation, particularly one that's a hardware manufacturer, there is no blank state. In fact, there's no precedent for building digital products, but there is a precedent for how we build hardware products. And that may conflict with the way that you think is the best way to build digital products, because it's very different. So you're in a context which is maybe not in your control. So this is my context. I work in a manufacturing company that's over 100 years old. And the history, yes, is in manufacturing. And that means absolutely waterfall throughout. Like, it's so waterfall you wouldn't believe. It's like the most waterfall ever. And also it means that they can launch things into the market. And then it's like, just bye, see you later. And then they never have to go back to it again. They can make every single one different, and it's fine, because they don't have to revisit it. In the same way as, we know who, when you're making digital stuff, once it's launched, that's just the beginning of the wonderful journey of digital products. So it's quite a different kind of mindset to reconcile. And there's no real intention to standardize the user experience on hardware products once they've left. I mean, of course, you want things that are usable. That's the standard. But it doesn't necessarily have to be usable in the same way. So it's a pretty big company in lots of markets. But yes, how do you build great digital products in this kind of context? This is a screenshot of our head office, and I always like it when there's an error on the internal screens that should be showing like brand videos, and instead it's just showing like, oh, you haven't clicked on the thing, people. So yes, so one way to approach this problem would have been to optimize the approach based on how the organization works, right? So could have gone to Electrolux and go, okay, how do you do these things already? And let's try and work with that and kind of slowly nudge you towards being a bit more digital, slowly. Could work, but it's hard to sustain, and it's really, really, really slow. And you know what? We don't have all the time in the world. We're people who like to do stuff, right? So instead, we started with what we believe is the right way to build digital products, and then we try to do that and find ways to do that within the context of this environment. So, yep, lots of appliances. And a subset of these appliances are what we call connected. So that means they've got a little Wi-Fi module in them, right? And the question that people always ask me is like, but why, Alex? Why would you connect your washing machine to the internet? Which, of course, the answer is like, why not, right? Because you can. You should do that. But no. The use cases for connectivity are primarily, well, for what we call our well-being appliances, which are air conditioners, air purifiers, robot vacuum cleaners. The use cases are pretty clear. If you want to see where your robot vacuum cleaner has cleaned, then you probably need it to be connected to the internet and then have an app where you can track it, right? Again, air conditioner, you probably want to switch it off when you're not home, and maybe it's nice to set a schedule. And again, you probably want to do that on a mobile phone. You don't want to be doing it on the UI of the air conditioner because it's up there and it'd be super annoying. So those things, I think, are fairly kind of clear. When it comes to laundry appliances, yeah, maybe it's not such a strong use case to connect it, but then when you think about things like if this is an appliance which can run when electricity is cheapest or when water rationing is not in place, you start to see that connectivity can start to play a sort of sustainability story there. And then when it comes to things like hobs and ovens, then really you're thinking about like, these are kind of sophisticated appliances with quite nice features which people tend to not get the best out of. And so again, connectivity can help guide or educate people into that. Classic thing is, just so you know, people buy steam ovens and then never use the steam function. Like, never. And it's like, maybe we can help you use the steam function. Maybe that would be cool. But there's also this kind of use case, which is the main thing, which as well is like keeping the owners of these appliances informed about maintenance and being able to keep the appliances going for longer. So there's also that. Oh yeah, and then there's fridge freezers. That's probably going to be more about food storage and preventing food waste. So, yeah. So we need an app right now in order to connect appliances to the internet and be able to kind of extend the UI of the appliance and give more interaction to the users. But it's not just an app. So apps are kind of part of what I do on a day-to-day basis, but the thing is, it's not just that. The app is kind of a conduit for helping us to bring digital methodologies and ways of working into this large manufacturing environment. So the app is just the sort of starting point. It's like a manifestation of the digital transformation. But the transformation affects everything from team structures, tools, ways of working, and culture. So we mentioned just Dovetail, just like we're using Dovetail and things like that. These are not things which would be used by some of the more established teams working on the hardware side. So we're moving from essentially more of a world dominated by electronics and hardware to one that's more digital, and that is uncomfortable. This is not a natively digital environment. Yep, project to product. It's a theme. So, but we can't ever get away from projects in our environment because there will always be these appliance projects which are delivered over a kind of 2 to 3 year period. So we never get away from that. So it's more about coexisting with these projects in a way that allows us to be successful. But what we always have to talk about is the fact that we're launching products which are going to be iterated over time, and that blows some people's minds a little bit. Yep, agile. But again, just as we're reconciling products with projects, we also have to reconcile agile ways of working with the waterfall world. And we have to do that in a respectful and collaborative way. So we have to sit down a lot with teams who are working in these ways, understand, how we can work together, where we would need to see change on both sides, or sometimes just change on their side. Like, I don't know. But we also have to think about that in a kind of a collaborative way and understand why people have to do what they need to do. But we're asking a traditional organization to be okay with kind of more uncertainty. That's the only thing. We're like, yeah, we think we're going to try this thing, and if it doesn't work out, we're going to try something else. They're called hypotheses. We do all this stuff. And yeah, some hardware people are like, you're crazy. And actually, they've said that to us sometimes. And also, it's hard for an environment where, particularly with like, a large established R&D, they are experts, and they believe in imparting their expert knowledge at different points in a project process, and that's very important to them, and it makes them feel really secure in what they do. And we're saying, like, well, we don't always know, and in fact, we might change, and we might want to do something differently, and we might want to go back and reassess those things. These things are very hard in this kind of environment because it's not natural to it. Also, again, a very large manufacturing company has a lot of regional business areas, as they're known. Working in regional business areas does not get us to where we need to be with digital products, because digital products are expensive to produce, and it needs to be a centralized team that works on things that can go global. So again, this is something which is uncomfortable with an organization like this. They prefer to have a lot of stuff in the regions as opposed to in a global central team. But there we are. So how do we do this? So just to say that when I joined Electrolux in 2019, we already had quite a few mobile apps that controlled various different appliances, but it was quite a sort of scattered, fragmented app landscape. So we picked two of our favorite appliances. This is our robot vacuum cleaner and our air purifier, and they're like little data machines, right? They produce data. One produces information about what your air quality is like in your home, and the other one maps your home and has a whole relationship to the floor in your home. So we prototyped the whole way of working that we wanted to do with these two appliances. And we chose these ones specifically because we think we could kind of get the most, out of those experiences. But also these are what they call small domestic appliances. Things like washing machines, those are called major appliances, and we didn't want to go to major appliances straight away because that would give us like a load of headaches. So we needed to kind of give ourselves a little corner of the business where we could experiment in peace. And these appliances allowed us to do this. And we did so with some key principles. And I just want to say we had a lot of principles and we have lots of principles and ways of working, documentation. We have a whole handbook, which I'm not going to show you all of which now. But this one I think speaks for itself. So we wanted to always really do less, not try and have too broad a remit from the beginning. We always focus on fundamental things, like everything from the information architecture to the app startup time, always about building a baseline experience before we try to do anything fancy. And we want to create a heartbeat. So yes, every 2 weeks, we do have all hands. Every 2 weeks, we release the app. Every 2 weeks, we have sprint demos. This is what we do, and we always do it. And again, very different to an organization that works in, different phases of the projects. So we were also co-located. And can you see how happy development, this developer over here, is to have a designer sitting next to him? Look how happy he is. Look, it's just, so happy. So when we started our journey, we were all co-located in beautiful Stockholm with a fantastic yellow wall at the back there. We were looking at these pictures again for this presentation, and somebody's like, I don't remember that wall being yellow. And everybody else was like, how could you forget that yellow wall? It's like, yeah. So this point, because as I say, we're just working with a couple of appliances, we could put all of our stakeholders in one room, which made life a lot easier, so we could talk to everybody at once. And also, we even got to experiment. So we actually started running what they call a pay-per-use like robot vacuum cleaner scheme where you could sort of rent the appliances from us, and this is all using refurbished appliances, which was great. And then in fact, we even just had them in the office with us because they couldn't give us any warehouse space. We literally just had piles of robot vacuum cleaners everywhere. So yeah, it was pretty basic, but we could try stuff out, which was really nice. And also we could not only do usability testing, but also we could have everybody in the usability testing. So this is, in fact, these are all developers sat in one of our usability testing sessions. And that was all user research as well, but specifically usability at this point. And we had user research included in the organization from day one to allow us to do that. But this was great because it built us a culture of engagement, not just for the design team, but also our development teams, because a lot of them hadn't done this before, like really sat and got to see user research, and also our stakeholders. So we were able to use user research as a way to kind of help build this collaboration. And yet, traditionally in a large hardware company, design is a design team that sits in, there's various different business areas, and they are used like as a service, and they provide designs at a certain point in the hardware development process. We wanted to make sure that didn't happen. We were working with a cross-functional organization, which is led by a leadership trio of myself, a tech lead, and a product lead. Oh, yes. And we're also having a design moment, aren't we? Yeah. So this is what the design team looked like when we first started. So that's myself as the UX lead. We had one software product designer, a UX researcher, and we had half, which is why Max is only just showing half of his face in this picture. We had half of a UX writer, because the other half of him had to be given to the web team, of course. So we were sharing him. So this is what it looked like, and this was deliberate right from the beginning. It was equal amounts of research, design, and as much writing as we could get. And it was a real MVP team. So as also you can see, what we were doing is that we were making sure that we weren't using the language which was typically in the organization. Of course, people have heard of technical writers, copywriters, but we were like, no, this is UX writing. It's different, special, better. And also, of course, there's market researchers, and also we got usability testers, a lot of that already in the organization. We were like, no, this is this UX researcher person. And then also we were calling ourselves not UI designers, because that was to do with the Appliance UI, so we wanted to differentiate ourselves. So the job title for this one was not so successful, so cliffhanger, we'll come back to this one later. And also tools. So for some crazy reason, we moved from Sketch to XD. Again, I think we can come back to that one later. That was just, yeah. Well, if we don't fail, we don't learn, right? Now, I'm wondering if this year is the last year where you can put a COVID slide in. I don't know, any votes on that one? But yes, basically, of course, COVID hit us, so we were all co-located, but now we were socially distanced as well. This is what COVID looked like in Sweden, by the way. You could actually still hang out together a little bit, sorry. But we're already using a solid digital setup, so move to remote working was not the worst for us. But it meant that even when we launched the first version of one of our apps, is that we had to do it online.
Electrolux in the App Store and released this version.
Wait for it.
We are live. We are the rules.
So just to say, we don't do it like that anymore. It's all automated now. But that was like the first time we did it, and we had to do it like online on a call, which was a bit sad, considering we'd been going on so much about how we had to be co-located and we had to be all together. But then when it actually came to like one of our first things we needed to do that was significant, we had to do it remotely. And also, this is what like a celebration remote launch. This is Daniel, a product, VP of product, and he says this picture's so sad. It's just like him with a little champagne glass. But Martin, the guy who was launching, he wore a suit for this, even though he was online, which I think was excellent. So we were getting stuff done. So we moved from these apps, which were supporting appliances, which were like individual appliance apps, like one app per appliance. Great. To what we call ecosystem apps, so that support several appliances, so that was moving on. We were supporting more brands. We've got quite a large number of brands that we have to support. And we were getting from apps that had pretty much no data or instrumentation in them, so to ones that had some. And we moved from UX, this is what the UX looked like when I joined, of the robot vacuum cleaner app, to this is what we were moving towards, which you can hopefully think is a slight improvement. So we consider to be successful at this point. Never be too successful, though, people, because then you have to scale, right? Woo! So then we had to scale. So we scaled our approach to all of these different types of products. So not just the robot vacuum cleaners and the air purifiers anymore. Went from 2 product teams to 18. We bigged up our leadership. We got very diverse. More locations, because why not? More time zones, again, why not? Which meant we had to really, of course, embrace hybrid life, hybrid working. So everything is now on Teams, yes. There's some things the corporation will make us do, which is to make us use Teams. So there's some things we can't get away from. And also, we spend a lot more time in these. I don't know if anybody else in the audience spends a lot more time in booths than you used to. Like, you always have to be sitting in the booth, even though you're in the office. I don't know. I spend a lot of time in booths. And of course, we always got more acronyms, right? Because again, remember, we like all acronyms here, right? So we already had lots of acronyms, but now we were like bigger. So everybody knows this one, right? What's a QBR? Quarterly Business Review, thank you. You know this one, right? And look, we've even got the T-shirt. I know, right? This one, anybody know this one? This is big room plannings. It's taken from the Spotify model. So it's the idea is that you have quarterly plannings in a room together. So our big room plannings went from big room planning to bigger, to very big. So like little conferences now. So this is how we get together every quarter, physically and also hybrid, of course, to plan better. Also, me personally, I got invited to join the design leadership team at Electrolux, which previously I wasn't a part of, but now I got to do that. And the team itself, this is what it looks like. So yeah, getting bigger all the time, growing to 3 product areas to support 3 product areas. So we've basically got a full stack design team in each of the product areas, and then they work to support all of the teams within the product areas. So we had to scale all of our ways of working, which was fine. We're working on our design system, so we're scaling on that, obviously. Always be scaling on design systems. And also, being able to make sure that we still got to collaborate and have team sketching sessions as often as possible. And yeah, back to the job title. So yeah, and software product didn't really work, so we're going with digital product now. So I'm just rolling that out. I don't know what you'll think. You can tell me comments in the thingy. So this is another plan at this. And yes, of course, we moved to Figma. What else were we going to do? Like not move to Figma? Of course we moved to Figma. The apps that we work with now are now in 91 countries, which is quite a lot. And we support a lot of languages. The 0.5 is Swiss German, because we just have a little bit of script that swaps out the double S for the special S. So that's how we do Swiss German, in case anybody's wondering. And of course, yes, we've got this nifty tool now, so we can publish the App Store shots into the App Store, but in all the different languages, and it's actually taken from the app. It's pretty cool. So now we're supporting a lot more appliance categories, as I said, and we've added another brand. So we're also having Frigidaire, which is our North American brand. So we're using we need to think about the brands more. So we have essentially the same information architecture, and certain things are brand agnostic, but we also have to work with the different brands for the visual expression, of which you're using design tokens, of course. So we've got like a supercharged design token system that we use, and we do everything from color, typography, corner radii, and we're also going to be extending that out to things like opacity and stuff in the future. So yes, we also had to upgrade our tokens ways of working, which means we had to move from 2 labs, which was like a cool little plug-in to Token Studio. So yes, we're cleaning up some of that fragmentation that I talked about at the beginning. So we're going to be moving from multiple apps into these 3 key apps. And we're getting a lot more data as we do so, which is fantastic. And we are making our users a little bit happy. I don't think App Store ratings are the most important things, but it is very nice, of course, when people enjoy what you're doing, so that's great. So my journey at Electrolux started with transforming our connected app experience, but it's just the beginning. We're now moving into a much broader program of digital transformation to do with the ways of working, and also maybe extending this out to our appliance UIs as well. But I promised you 3 takeaways. So here they are. So these are the 3 takeaways, 3 things which I believe are what it takes to build great digital products in my particular context. So the first one is stick to your principles. It's important. If you believe it to be important, then you have to sometimes fight for that. But also, I guess, you have to work out what your principles are. Start small and scale, can't emphasize this enough. If we had tried to go in at the beginning to do what we're doing now, we would have totally failed. And it's all about the ink. It's a small, little-known fact that the more tattoos your team have, the better your products will be. I promise you, it's a total guarantee. So just make sure and this is only a small selection. There's a lot more ink than this in our teams. I didn't even begin to, I couldn't get permission for everybody to photograph. There's a lot more ink than this, and it's really, really necessary. But no, it's not really the ink, though we do like the ink. It's fika. So does anybody here know what fika is? Fika is the Swedish tradition of having like a nice cup of coffee, not tea, because they're Swedish, and I prefer tea. And having that with some cake and sitting down and talking, and it's a wonderful time for team collaboration and discussion and everything. So fika is really the thing that fuels, no, not really, but fika is very important. It's very important. Twinning, so when your team is so in sync that it starts to wear the same clothing, that you know that you're winning. That's when you know you're really doing the great stuff. No, it's not twinning, though twinning is fun. It is, of course, the people. Without the people, we are nothing. So it's about these wonderful people who can build wonderful things, and about really building that culture and having those people around you. So yeah, so I just want to big up the people. And that's me. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
So when you're trying to move all these parts and you weren't part of the design leadership team, what were some of the unexpected challenges once you got added and you were able to scale your team?
To the leadership team?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you come in and you have to kind of understand where you connect with people. And everybody actually, you know what it is, a respect for research that I think is finding. The one thing that, design really kind of align on is about that respect and about how that can be brought into it. So that's actually something which really drives all of those engagements, I think, is like, how can we get the best user insights into what we're doing? Okay. So I think, yeah, I think all design leadership teams are actually secretly user research teams.
Wonderful. Okay, let's dig into some questions here. From our favorite person, Anonymous, how did you measure UX success?
Honestly, right now, we're still trying to build quite fundamental parts. So the UX success is that, we did the thing a lot of the time. We made that happen. I think as well, just being able to, we have OKRs, we follow our OKRs, we of course do that. But right now, I think we're still working on what's really the best measures. Because I don't think App Store reviews, obviously, I don't think that's the best. But I think this is something that we're still iterating and working on. Okay. But sometimes it's just through that continuous assessment as well, and being able to research as often as possible, and being able to hear back from people. But yeah, it's an ongoing process, that one. Okay.
Yeah. You mentioned OKRs. Do you have your own, or are your OKRs the business OKRs, and it's just your contribution to them?
So we have both. So I would say that in the kind of the product area OKRs and the kind of overarching OKRs for the whole of our organization, sometimes there will be ones related to design research or user experience in general. Okay. But we also have our own individual ones, which actually very, very similar to Reed. Something as simple as that we're running this many sessions per quarter, for instance, okay. That kind of thing. Or we are, supporting this many appliances, this kind of thing. So quite simple ones on the design and research side, but yeah.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. And also for UX writing, because UX writers are so good at these things, they're building their own. They've got a very detailed set of OKRs that they're following. Okay. So yeah, lovely. And I just that's great.
Yeah, my writers and localization team always had their own OKRs, and they were always so well written. And you're like, oh, well, that makes sense.
Because whenever you read them, you're like, oh yeah, wow, maybe that's true for everyone. Oh.
Yeah, they're writers for a living. So
yeah, they're too good, those writers.
Okay, I feel like we all know this answer, but why did you move away from XD to Figma? Was it a good move?
Honestly, if you've used XD, right, the collaboration was just not working. And we actually even spoke to Adobe. We were called them up, and we had to sit down with them, and we were the collaboration features are just not working, and we don't understand, what's going on. And they just did this thing where they went, yeah, And we're that's not a response. And they were yeah, we have thought about fixing it. And I'm thought about? Really? And then, of course, I think they were planning.
I mean, Homer Simpson, bush, shrub.
Yeah, they were just, it was a lot of Homer Simpson behind the bush, exactly. And I just was like, okay. And then also, just like the whole of the design team were like, Figma, Figma, Figma. I was like, okay. And then, but also, it was actually our design tokens support as well.
Big push, right?
I mean, we asked Adobe, we said, have you got support for tokens? And they were like, yeah, we're thinking about it. And I'm like, okay, thinking.
This canned response when you're an account manager.
We need it.
We are thinking
now.
about it.
So yeah.
We're thinking about it a lot. Okay. No, Brad Frost just gave a talk recently about how design tokens and web components are going to merge into this beautiful world of one global design system, being able to push things out across 17 brands, 3 software, hardware, digital, non-digital, AR, VR. And some companies are still, of course, being like, we're going to use XD. So.
Yeah, exactly. Calm down.
So, how do you communicate value of UX in the design process in general to leadership? So besides your DLT team, to like general leadership.
I'm very lucky in that, one of the reasons why I joined the company is because I have a very supportive VP of product who really understands the value of design. And I think, that's half the job, right? If you're spending a lot of your time and energy fighting for, why you should exist, you have to question whether or not you're in an environment that can really support you. And I know that's not an easy answer for a lot of people. I think as well, it's like there is something about being in hardware where people do appreciate the nature of design because of the physicality of what they do. So actually, that's also been ingrained into the organization somewhat because it's like if it looks great, that's great. If it works great, that's even better. I'm like, if it looks and works great, guess what? You're going to do so amazing. So there is that built in. But I think as well, again, we've got a great chief experience officer, and again, it's his sponsorship that's helped. So I'm afraid C-suite really has to get it. And if they don't, then, yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
It is tough. I have a whole workshop when they don't get it, because sometimes they get it until a certain point.
Yeah.
So maybe they get ergonomics very, very much so because you make a physical product, and if they don't feel like they can use it when they see a demo of it, they understand that's an issue. But maybe they don't understand why a certain feature isn't great and why you should prioritize that, for example.
Yeah, we get lots of feature requests that are like,
top-down feature requests.
Not so much from really top-down, but more mid-level, I guess, because there's a lot of expectations of well, our competitors are doing this.
Yes.
And I'm like, of course your competitors do, but are they really getting value? Is it really working out for them? And that's always my question back to them. Is it really, can you show me that it's providing value for the competitors? And often not, they're like, but they've got the thing.
We must have the thing,
We must have the thing as well. It's just like, meh, maybe not. So.
Nice. Bring back sketch. I'm sorry, mystery man, not gonna happen. How is your work with localization? How is it impacting your software design?
Okay, yeah, so localization, as you can see, we're working with quite a few languages, and that's not even all the languages. Have had a question, had the request for, oh my God, there's one language which I like, not over my, we'll never do that particular language because it's just too niche. It was a very small language. I can't remember now.
Is it Luxembourgish?
No. Luxembourgish, yes.
Is it?
I was like, no Luxembourgish, no. But you never know, we might still do Luxembourgish. I'll never say never. Localization, we actually bring in our translation, we are part of the translation tool chain. So we actually have direct hands-on, we work with the localization as part, so it's not like it's done by a different team and it has a separate thing. We don't have that dependency. We actually, because of the tools we're using, we're having localization built in. We do have to work with a lot of native language reviewers as well. So that, but because we're working with a very smart tool chain for localization, we can turn we can turn most things around in 2 days, like most translations. And then if we've got a fairly quick response from our native language reviewers, that means we can have we can usually do everything within the sprint. So it's a lot in the tools and a lot in the kind of being able to get people to validate it fairly quickly. So. That's the main thing. And then, of course, with the designs, we have to allow for check. Check gets so long, doesn't it? Why is check so long? So we have to make sure that we've got space for that and always allow for that in our components. But, that's, I think, just the nature of work nowadays. We can't just design for English.
Right. Do you have a QA team or quality assurance?
Sorry, yeah.
Do you have a quality assurance or QA team?
We have a small QA function, who works across the product areas to support that. But then, of course, we do actually have QA in each of the product areas as well. Okay. So we have both it as an enabling function, just to ensure that it's, the ways of working are being carried across successfully, but then the actual practitioners of it more are within the product areas, yeah. So we do have QA, yeah.
Okay, fantastic.
Fantastic.
One big loud round of applause. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.